You know, I swear to goodness gracious, I was just about to hit you with the intro where we say, okay, the World Juniors are going on, and so we're talking about guys that are at the tournament, right? But this player is unfortunately not at the World Juniors, and then I realized, wait, we had that exact same intro in yesterday's video talking about Juraj Slafkovsky, the Canadiens' first overall pick, and the comments made by Marian Hossa comparing that Slafkovsky to one Jaromir Jagr. But today I wanted to go over yet another name in the Montreal Canadiens system who unfortunately got cut from his World Juniors team. This time it wasn't because he's going to prepare for the NHL, but because Team USA just did not select him for the final cut. Today we're going over a prospect that you could realistically say is the newest, most underrated prospect in the entire system. He's not the biggest guy out there, he's not the baddest guy out there. In fact, he's quite small. Today we're going over Lane Hutson, and just trying to articulate how good this player could really be. Now, before we go over into the entire list of materials that I have prepared for you, I wanted to give some shoutouts over here. Firstly, to Hattie K, who went out there and made an entire scouting report video. It's 17 minutes long on Lane Hutson, and it's super in-depth. Hattie does some incredible work for Dobber prospects, and their scouting reports on YouTube are definitely very good for any Canadiens fan looking for some extended looks on your prospects. It's 17 minutes long. Hattie includes a lot of analytical data. There is some footage in there of Lane Hutson from various NTDP games. I don't include footage in my videos because, yeah, the copyright game is something that I really don't want to get involved within. But Hattie went out there and did that, so go ahead, give them a follow, give their video a watch. It is fantastic. And I also wanted to give a shout out as well to Sebastian High, who went out there and did an entire Twitter thread on Lane Hutson. We're going to be reading that here in this video. Sebastian is out here with Dobber, and this entire thread is one of the reasons why we're even making this video in the first place, so big shout outs to the Dobber people over there for making some great content. But just going over Lane Hutson and his entire profile before we dive into it. He's 18 years old, 5'8", 159 as a left-handed defenseman. The 5'8 is why he went in the second round, 62nd overall by the Montreal Canadiens, despite the fact that he went out there and he had the best NTDP program season by any draft-eligible defenseman in terms of points per game in the club's history. Here are the names that he beat out points per game wise. Cam York, who was playing with Jack Hughes, Cole Caulfield, Zagros, Turcotte, Boldy, etc. Fantastic generational team. Adam Fox in 2015-16 was defeated by Lane Hutson. Luke Hughes was bested by Hutson as well. If you go over to raw points, you can see that Lane Hutson, as a 17-year-old, bested out Quinn Hughes' 17-year-old season with the NTDP. And just based off of the competition that he was able to best out, you could tell that Lane Hutson is a very good offensively minded defenseman. It's just the fact that he is only 5'8 is the reason he went so far down in the draft. He's going over to BU next season, so we'll see what he is able to accomplish over there. But this is what Sebastian High writes about Lane Hutson in his video analysis thread. Most of you are probably already aware of my opinion on Hutson as a Habs prospect. I had him ranked higher in the 2022 draft than any public scout, at least as far as I'm aware, at 11th overall, just below Simon Nemec and ahead of Matthew Savoie. In this thread, I want to break down one of his games this year and show you exactly why I'm as high on his upside as I am, and why he's a bit of a divisive prospect due to uncertainty in his projection. For those who are unfamiliar with Hutson, he is an undersized and extremely skilled left-handed defenseman who displayed a high level of dynamism that no other 2022 draft-eligible defenseman did, in my opinion. He is extremely exciting and far from a sure thing, and he's committed to BU this year. Following the thread are a few video clips of Hutson going out there and making some plays. This clip encapsulates Hutson's style and abilities in a nutshell. He is extremely aggressive with the puck, highly deceptive, confident, and has great hands, but he also has a choppy stride that lacks depth and a proper knee bend. He also can be a bit individualistic. This was also highlighted in Hattie's video talking about Lane Hutson, how Hutson in the offensive zone is not afraid to use a lot of head fakes. He pumps his body one way while skating with the puck the other way a few seconds later, and he uses that to evade pressure and make space for himself in a very effective way for the NTDP. His footwork keeps up with the pace that he plays in his mind, which is why he's able to traverse around the offensive zone with confidence and ease. Sebastian writes that while his stride is choppy and his pivots are really choppy, Lane Hutson has excellent edge work, which provides solid foundation for his skating and should help facilitate improving his overall skating, which is a necessity for a defenseman of his size. Skipping over to a few more clips here, Sebastian writes that in terms of his in-zone defending, Lane Hutson uses his elite hockey sense to position himself soundly, but he needs to learn to find the right moments to engage the puck carrier, even in multivariable defensive scenarios. He's not passive, but he needs to be a bit more active. If he can learn the habit of pressuring the puck carrier at open ice and forcing a low-danger shot, which he blocks in this clip, more often and consistently than he did this season, he could develop into a non-net negative defensive player, which is all he needs to be. The reason Sebastian is saying this is because Lane Hutson offensively is very good. If you can get a guy that is, at the very least, a net neutral player in his own zone, automatically, that's a positive metric when you take a look at how good he is in the offensive zone, because, hey, if you have a guy that's super good offensively, but okay defensively, he is, at the very least, a good enough player to consider for your hockey team. Sebastian goes over and highlights his lower body strength and how it needs some improvement, and these clips overall demonstrate why many scouts were/are skeptical of Hutson as a prospect. He's less of a sure thing than many other prospects drafted in the top 2 rounds, but now let's get into why I ranked him 11th. His offensive and transition value. Let's start with his transition game. Hutson's consistent scanning, high-speed processing, deception, and maneuverability make him excellent on puck retrievals, and his borderline elite passing ability allows him to start the breakout extremely efficiently. His breakout passing is at its best when he's pressured by a forechecker and forced to find a quick and creative solution to the problem he faces. In this clip, he uses the excellent edges he has to avoid pressure and sends a dart of a pass towards Frank Nazar, who scores in his typical fashion. He also uses his deceptive ability to trademark shoulder fakes and get around the first forechecker with ease, before passing the puck to a forward and accelerating the breakout. In the offensive zone, Lane Hutson combines his deception, hockey sense, playmaking, and aggressiveness to create controlled chaos around the opposition slot. He attacks the inside with great consistency and has a real knack for a cross-seam pass. This is enhanced by his delay game. There are a lot more clips in this Sebastian High Twitter thread that go over Hutson, but as a whole, he is an offensive dynamo with elite potential in transition who could be a first-pairing defenseman with the right development and in the right system, which allows him to play a fluid offensive base game based on his instincts and skill. There remain many hurdles for him to reach that level, mainly in his defensive effectiveness, but despite these question marks, which are the reasons why Hutson was available to the Habs at 62nd overall, I believe that Lane Hutson is an elite-level prospect, and that the Canadiens took a more than worthwhile bet on his elite talent and hockey mind. And if we go over to the Elite Prospects Scouting Report, what they wrote over on their draft guide about Hutson, the way the 5'8" blue liner evades opponents with weight shifts, handling moves, and fakes allow him to turn every puck touch into a grade A scoring chance, whether he's the one pulling the trigger or as a setup man. He is a fantastic skater with second-gear acceleration. He possesses great vision of the ice and is reliable for a good first pass out of the zone. At the end of the day, the Montreal Canadiens didn't just get a prospect that outproduced Quinn Hughes, Cam York, Adam Fox, and every other NTDP defenseman in the U18 program's history, but they also got a guy who is so gosh darn gifted in his mobility, deception, and offensive creativity that there's a reason some scouts had him at 11th overall in the draft. I think it's fair to say that if everything, and I mean everything, goes right for Lane Hutson in his development, his physical maturity, his defensive awareness, his defensive capabilities, heck, not even him growing to like 6 feet tall, let's just leave him at 5'8". If everything goes properly for Lane Hutson, there are a few realities out there where this guy becomes a number 1 defender for the Montreal Canadiens. It's all going to depend on the system they decide to play when he is there. It's going to depend on the way he develops. It's going to depend on Marty St. Louis and how St. Louis decides to use him. But come on, man, Marty St. Louis is another small guy. He's already doing really good things with Cole Caulfield, so what's another small player for the Canadiens? Nick Suzuki, Brendan Gallagher, Paul Byron, hey, they're all small over here in Habs Town, and that's okay. Lane Hutson is just adding to the pile, and he's a guy that has such an incredibly high ceiling that it's difficult to go out there and not be excited. So talk in the comments all your thoughts about Lane Hutson. Again, shout out to Hottie and the fantastic Lane Hutson scouting report that is 17 minutes long. Shout out to Sebastian for the Twitter thread that he ended up writing. Talk in the comments all your thoughts about Montreal Canadiens second-round prospect Lane Hutson, whom the Habs acquired from the Brett Kulak trade, oddly enough. Do you think the Canadiens got a good prospect here? What are your opinions overall about Hutson and his development? I hope you enjoyed this Juraj 99. and bye.